Every October, like clockwork, the media publishes articles with a sad picture where the India Gate is barely visible through the pollution. On cue, everyone starts blaming farmers for stubble burning, but not many of us truly understand the problem. So today we discuss stubble burning with Akshita to understand what it is, why it's done, and how we can curb it in the long run. Welcome to Here everyone. I'm Riya. This is Jitendra,
Hi, everyone.
and we're joined by Akshita Sharma.
Hi.
Today, the three of us are discussing Akshita's paper titled Stubble Burning The Need for a Behavioural Lens. And luckily, Jitendra has also written a paper on stubble burning, so I'm the only clueless one here.
If you want to follow along, head over to the show notes where we've linked the paper.
Okay, let's just jump into it then, Akshita. Um, I just wanted to address the who, what, why, when of everything. And I guess the basic question that I want to ask, just jumping into it, is what is stubble burning in a brief sentence, and who is really responsible for it?
Okay, so stubble burning is the burning of paddy or rice crop residue, and this happens in mostly northern India, which includes Punjab, Haryana, and Uttar Pradesh. So, what happens is when paddy is harvested, it leaves behind stubble, which needs to be quickly taken care of for the farmers because they have only 2 to 3 weeks before then they need to sow wheat or potato. So they have a really short time frame, and what they prefer to do is just burn all of the stubble. And what is interesting is that this has not been happening since forever. This started about a little more than a decade ago. So this is like a classic example of, when you try to do something good but the final result creates more problems. So in 2009, the government came up with this Prevention of Subsoil Water Act,
Mm-hmm.
which wanted to delay the sowing of paddy. So the government wanted that the farmers sow paddy in May and June so that the monsoon rains can be utilized and
Okay.
underground water is not used as much. But what it did was, because you delay the sowing, you delay the harvesting, and then
Mm.
it reduced the time farmers had to sow the next crop. So they just started to burn it because it's very time effective and it's very cost effective as well. And talking about who's responsible for it, I think if you look at it just in isolation, it would seem like the farmers are responsible, and that's also how the narrative usually goes, blaming farmers of not being aware enough or educated enough to take good decisions. But if you sort of zoom out a bit, you'll see that the larger responsibility is also held by government policies and incentive structures that are in place. So, yeah.
Okay. Wow, that sounds like we tried to tackle climate change in one way and completely bumped up in another place. Akshata, something that you mentioned in your answer right now was that the general discourse around awareness and how the discourse sort of puts the blame squarely on farmers' shoulders. Um, but when I was going through your piece, there's a point in your paper where you also talk about other issues, even though farmer, for example, in the Jind district of Haryana, had high levels of understanding about stubble burning. Um, and they understand the drawbacks but the point that you raise is that there's no alternative. So I guess to simplify, what I'm trying to ask is, if burning is generally seen as this overall bad thing, especially now that, usually it's bad enough as it is with the air pollution, but now with COVID and breathing being a really big sort of political issue right now, um, if burning is so bad and then farmers understand, as you point out, that it's so bad, then why do they do it?
Yeah, so I think here it's important to understand that the farmers are doing what they think is in the best interest for them and their families, right? Everybody make decisions that way. So they burn stubble because it is economical for them and they can't think of better options, either due to awareness or due to other issues, which I think we'll be talking about later on. So even in this survey with 600 farmers in Punjab, like 41% of them said that the window between harvesting paddy and sowing wheat is so tiny that we have to burn it. Again, around 50% of farmers were like burning is so much faster and so much economical for them, right? Now one can say that, oh, the government has so many policies and programs, there are machines available, there are crop residue management machines or CRM machines as we call it, there are happy seeder machines, then there are so many incentives in place, then why are the farmers still burning stubble? But we need to understand that even though there are government policies in place, they fail to see this issue something that is from a farmer's perspective. They usually follow the polluter pays principle, right? So if you're polluting it, you take care of it, we have nothing to do with it, right?
Mhm.
They need to see it from a farmer's perspective to understand why they are doing it and how they can stop farmers from doing it, instead of just imposing it on them that stop doing it or we'll fine you, which has happened before. It's banned, it's fine, but it's still happening, right?
Mm.
So I think it's important to provide a system, like to build this effective system where farmers can move away from stubble burning with ease, as a choice. Yeah, I think, see, we're so even if we look at this from the point of view of farmers, farmers need to understand. And again, here is where the awareness part comes in. Like stubble burning might be really good in the short term, it also might help boost the soil, but in the long term it's bad, right? So it's bad for them. The air pollution it causes is bad for them as well, like as much as
Right.
it is for Delhi. So I think along with this awareness part, what needs to come in is making other alternatives. Like we mentioned, there are happy seeder machines which will cut the stubble and sow the wheat at the same time. So the options that are available to the farmers should also be cost and time effective. I mean, even if farmers think that, okay, you know what, I don't want to burn stubble, but if still they don't find any cost effective, time effective option, they won't go forward with it. And here is where something new that the government came up with last year, the Delhi government comes in. The Pusa biodecomposer, which
Right.
can decompose the stubble in 15 to 20 days, and then you can just mix it with the soil as manure, right? So that is something which I feel is definitely time effective. If the awareness part is also taken care of, like farmers know that they shouldn't burn and they can instead use this, which is so much, like so many times better than stubble burning, which audit reports prove, by the way. The only thing that is left for the government to take care of is the cost effective part, I think. And last year, I remember Delhi government did it for free
Right.
for in a number of places. So I'm not sure how it's happening this year, but Delhi government is, I think, from 5th October going to start spraying this, and they are also asking other neighboring states to do the same. So I think this could be sort of like a potential solution to the problem. Of course, we'll have to see how it pans out and how it works out. But this seems like a really good option right now.
I think even like in your paper, you mentioned that, and I can't help but wonder because there are happy seeder machines which, like you mentioned, do the stubble cutting and then also sowing work. Um, and then there are these new technologies which are coming up. But you do mention in your paper that shortage of labor is a big issue at this point, and also just the general. My dad used to do it, so I will do it too. Sorry, also like, or my mom used to do it, and I'll do it too. And it's just that generational habit that's passed down, and there's some traditional or cultural thing around it. But I should would that be fairly easy to break, given that you mentioned it sort of started a decade-ish ago, or do you think that will stick
Hmm.
around?
I think since it started somewhat a decade ago, I don't think it's become that generational. Like, it's
Hmm.
happening from 4 or 5 generations anyway.
Right.
Um, so I don't think that will be such a huge issue. And I really feel that, again, awareness and just seeing farmers around you make better decisions about, just how to take care of their fields. And as I said, in the long term, it's not good. And if the farmers really accept that, they will not do it, right? Because again, that is generational. The farming land will go to their children, and they know that what I'm
Right.
doing is not sustainable. So yeah, and I mean, even if there are happy seeder machines and there are all these options, there are other implementational issues that come up, right? There is a shortage of machines. Into 2019-20, there was about 23,000 sanctioned machines and only 14,000 reached farmers, right?
Hmm.
So there is a shortage of machines. Again, even if the machine is available, it's really costly. Even after subsidy, I need to pay 65,000 for a happy seeder machine, which I'm
Right.
going to use once a year. And I might also need a big tractor along with it, which again I need to take a loan and buy. And it'll stay idle for the entire year. I mean, it makes no sense, even like for me, even if any one of us thinks that way, right? It's just does not make any sense. Again,
Mm.
you would think that okay, if you can't buy machines, then you can just rent it for a few days. But again, reports show that there are villages where there are thousand farmers using two machines. How do 1,000 farmers with two machines wo- clear out stubble within 2 to 3 weeks? Like, it's impossible, right?
Mm.
Again, there have also been situations where the government said that, you know what, don't burn stubble, collect it, we'll take it from you. But nobody ever came. So then there's lack of trust. Also, not to mention the whole farmer protests that are happening right now. And
Yeah.
that could also affect trust in some way, because last year, even though for I think last 4 5 years in Punjab the stubble burning has been reducing, but there was a spike last year, and which can, I think some part of it can be attributed to farmers not wanting to cooperate with the government. So maybe this year we could um, expect something of this sort as well.
So, okay, so I think this is a good time to talk about the farmer protests. As you mentioned, some of the rise in the crop burning events last year could be linked to just just the fact that the farmers are pissed off at the government. They might not want to cooperate. Going forward, we could see some of that happen.
Yeah.
An uptick, I'm not sure, but we'll have to wait for the data.
Mm.
Uh, I am sort of curious as to still, if even if it doesn't matter what the data shows, uh, would any farmer be as non-cooperative as to willingly do something that they know is harmful, that they shouldn't be doing? I mean, can discontent with the government have that kind of an impact? Or in your how do you see that play out, in fact, in the next couple of years, given the the protest is not ending anytime soon?
The podcast is
That's the
also not
Freudian,
ending.
Oh my God. You two, it was
that's the
such
Freudian
a
slip.
Herculean effort to get you to do this today. Oh my God. Sorry, Akshita, go ahead with Jitendra's.
Yeah. So I was saying that I don't think farmers will get vindictive, like, oh, they are not listen. The government is not listening to us, so we are going to burn all the stubble.
Right.
I think like not burning stubble is already so much of an effort that farmers might just be like, I'm not going to put that much of effort. Let's just burn it. Like,
Mm.
why do I put so much effort and go rent a machine, take loans, buy a machine, and then take care of the stubble, which will take so much of time and energy. I'll just burn it anyway. The government is not listening to us, so I might as well. So I think that could be some sort of thought process. Like, nobody's going to deliberately burn stubble, but they might just refrain from putting any effort from not burning it.
Is there any other way that you think the farmers' protest will impact? Um, I mean, I can't speak to farming practices, but just in general, do you think it will impact how Delhi or even North India in general faces pollution right after the burning?
I don't know. I mean, I do think that I feel a lot of farmers are not where they're supposed to be, and they're here at the protests. That might just also be one of the reasons why, the family members could just prefer burning the stubble, not going through the effort, because the members of the family who are directly involved in farming are not present. That could
Right.
also be something. Hmm.
One of the things that I read somewhere is that much of Delhi's food comes from Punjab, Haryana, and Himachal. Punjab, Haryana, certainly. The cereals do come from there.
Yeah.
And if we're eating Punjab and Haryana's rice, then effectively what we're doing is we are paying for the pollution
Hmm.
of our own air. We are the ones
Hmm.
who are paying for it.
Mm.
So I don't know. Food for thought. It's
Yeah,
just
wow, Jitendra's coming in hot
this
with
is
these puns, dude.
Now, this is something people will just go crazy about. Stop taking rice from Haryana and Punjab. That is something people will like to protest. Protest
no,
against.
no, no, certainly not.
That's a hot thing to protest against.
I'm just saying people do have stake in this.
Mm-hmm. No,
What you're
yeah, I
eating
understand.
is what is creating pollution of your own air. So what do you do about it?
Do people
You
even
stop
know where
eating.
their rice is coming from?
Now they know.
Much of the basmati that comes to Delhi comes from Punjab,
Right, right, right.
and in fact, the regular rice varieties that we have.
I think
Even
rice in my house comes from MP because it's called MP
yeah,
Goldana.
Oh, rice,
I think there's just
rice contest.
this in fact this links to just the general disconnect between the farm and the plate.
Mm.
People just don't are not dis are just so disconnected from what they're eating and where it's growing that they have no idea why whatever is happening with them is happening with them. Especially in this case, the air pollution.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's also such a
this is
privileged,
interesting.
yeah, it's such a privileged thing also, where you can just like go and purchase food and you don't have to think twice about it. I think at least in India, it's a very, very big privilege
Yeah,
to do that because a lot of people do depend on farming. Like even when I went back to my village, like just to be able to see farms and them saying, "Oh, this sabzi is right from our backyard" or something. Like people live that close to what is on their plates,
exactly.
which is why I also think we are really removed from sympathizing with farmers when they do burn the stubble. And it's
Hmm.
really easy to demonize them because we don't see the labor that they do for us, or we like don't even know where the, like you said, Jitendra, where the like the food on our plates are coming from. Okay, that's a really morbid note to end on, I would say. Okay, thanks for hanging out with us today, everyone. If you want a more in-depth understanding of the topic, head on over to SPRF.in, where you can read Akshita's paper. Um, we'll even link it to the in the show notes. And thanks for hanging out with us. Stay safe and keep your lungs healthy.